And we are live. JT here. Welcome to the huddle. The huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are watching with us on Facebook or on YouTube, whether you are listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distractions and get laser focused in the here and the now. And I guarantee you, you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. We had the opportunity to connect in the fall, and we've had some great conversations about the game of life, around how to be an optimal performer, about really how to integrate spirit, mind, body, but really just how to thrive in the game of life. So I asked him, and we moved into action and set this up. My guest in the huddle today is the head of sales with Limitless Minds. My guest in the huddle today is David Zeh. How are you today, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, it's been actually a pretty quick turnaround. We met probably November, December, and here we are doing a podcast. But no, it's really cool. It's cool to meet people on the same mission and just kind of talk through the things that we both see on a daily basis. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we get kicked off, pun intended, I'd like to remind everyone the importance of counting your blessings. And for me, that's a daily practice. Some days I do it better than others, but I do find the days where I'm most consistent counting my blessings, I do find life feels a little bit lighter, feels a little richer, a little fuller. And I'm a firm believer that the biggest blessing you can give anyone is your time and energy. So again, I just want to thank you, brother, for blessing me and our community with some of your time and energy today, and really looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, likewise, man. I appreciate you asking me to be on here. It's funny you say that. At Limitless Minds, we always say we start with gratitude. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to be on here. We actually have a group chat, our entire organization, where every single day it's I would say 99% non-work related, someone posting what they're grateful for. And what we've learned and what the organizations we work with have learned is that if you start there, it's puts you in a position for a better day, right? And if you can always be thinking about what you're grateful for, instead of always be thinking about what you want to accomplish or what you want to do, and you let life get in the way, it's pretty easy to kind of forget that kind of stuff. So I love that you started with gratitude today as well.
Great minds think alike, right? That's the cliche, right?
These clues.
Okay. So as we get kicked off here, I had a coworker that helped me to understand that life is a game and games are supposed to be fun. And one of the things that I've come to appreciate is that we all are unique, we're all different, we all have these things that really make us shining lights in this world. So I'm curious, what's an interesting fact, some may call it a quirk, that maybe a lot of people don't know about you, but you'd be open to sharing with our community today?
Oh gosh. On the spot. I feel like I'm in at a work lunch and learn or something where we kind of go around the room. Yeah, I mean the obvious is sports. I would say when I actually hung up the cleats, yeah, I had a massive void to fill. And I have been lucky enough to come to the game of golf to get out a lot of my frustrations and a lot of my competitive edge. But avid golfer, I spend a lot of my weekends in the summer playing golf with good friends, and my wife's starting to pick back up the game. So
Okay.
that's how I fill out my competitive itch in the post football world.
Okay. Well, I love that, right? And it sounds like, again, golf has sort of become a way for you to channel and focus that drive, right, into, that desire to get better. And I mean, that high quality athlete mindset. So I'm curious, is there a particular thing about golf that really hooked you, that really got you sort of like immersed in the game?
Yeah, good question, man. It's so hard. It's so hard. I played quarterback in high school and was lucky enough to earn a scholarship and got to start as a true freshman and all that stuff. And it just was always easier. Golf
Yeah.
is so challenging. It's the simplest game and the hardest game at the same time. You
Mhm.
hit 15 bad shots in a row, but you hit one and you're like, dang, that was so easy. Like it just felt
Yeah.
perfect. Right. And so like, I think, I don't know. If you're always trying to get a little bit better, you always are getting better. And I
Mhm.
think that golf is a perfect analogy for like, you are never going to be perfect, right? You even
Mhm.
watch, the guys playing on tour and they hit some bad shots too. Now that granted they're, a lot fewer and far between than mine, but they're still chasing that too. So I think it's a pretty good analogy for life in general.
Yeah, and it's great, and what, again, I really heard from that was that idea, like, people often say be a, lifelong learner, but it sounds like golf is a perfect vehicle to be a long life learner, right? Where you're never going to get it perfect, but again, as you get up to the tee, or you get up to the green, and you just keep working at it, right? You take those focused reps, and you hit that shot that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
all the struggle worth it.
yeah. No, you're so right. And I think like if you start to play off like the analogies of it, there's a lot of analogies that kind of pull into the corporate world too, where your barometer for success in golf is ever changing,
Mhm.
right? From a handicap system, when you start, you're going to be pretty bad, right? And then all of a sudden, breaking 100 seems like a great score, and then breaking 90 seems like a great score, and breaking 80 seems like it, and so on, right? But along that path, there's other people who have started at different times, right? And if you start at, you're 30 and you just pick up a golf club for the first time, it's not very fair to assume that you're going to go compete with the person who's played for 25 years,
Yeah.
right? And I think, I have a very special place in my heart for founders and entrepreneurs and people who have started businesses. And that's a very common thing that is talked about all the time in that community, the imposter syndrome, because you compare yourselves to people who have
Mhm.
already gone through the grind, right? They're already on the other side of that. And it's like, it seems so easy for them because they've already gone through the work, right? When in reality, you're not comparing yourselves to people who are on the same playing field. So
Yeah.
the more you look at the game, I think there's a lot more analogies and life lessons you can pull from it. So
Yeah, no, and I love that. I love that ability to, just observe life, right? Whether it's, in your business, whether it's on the golf course, whether it's on the football field, whether it's in your relationships, right? Like everything is, there's always something to harvest from there, right? Like there's a teachable moment, there's a learning opportunity within there. Um, so I'm curious. Sport has obviously played an important role for you in your life, right? You were first a high quality athlete. You still are. Just it shifted from football to golf, and now you've sort of dedicated your life to being a leader with Limitless Minds. So I'm curious. What would you say has been the biggest life lesson you've taken from sport? Again, there are many there, but what would you find is that lesson that really resonates with you that you still find yourself applying to your life today?
yeah, that's a really good question, JT. And I think it's probably not necessarily the answer you're expecting. For me, like I was always athletic, right? And I was always able to compete in whatever I was doing. But my high school was absolutely incredible at football. 4 straight all-state quarterbacks and back to back to back deep playoff experiences. And what happens is if you're the person in that situation, you don't necessarily get the same shine that you would if you went to another organization or another school. And so what I learned at that age was the delayed gratification of the hard work that you had to put in, right? And understanding that I'm going to spend 3 years worth of working out and training and learning and sitting on the bench, right? And not getting that experience on Friday night where, you run out and you're the starter and you're getting all of that gratification from everyone. And so like, I think there's a lot to pull from that, because we live in this fast food society now where everyone thinks because they worked hard for a day that all of a sudden, I deserve the raise, I deserve the promotion. And, I think there's a lot of good that comes from the technology that we have at our hands and everything right now. But I think it also is giving a lot of folks an unrealistic expectation of the amount of work that is required to actually have success, or their version of success, however they define success.
Yeah, no, and I love that, right? And what I feel is a powerful reminder is that practice of patience, right? Like you said, like great things take time. And what it reminds me is, like you said, we live in a fast food culture. We live in a world that, tech is great, but also remember, we are seeing people's highlight reels. So sometimes it's easy to look at where someone's at and think, oh, I wish I could be them. But rarely do we see all the reps and sets, the focus ones that they've been putting in for days, weeks, often months, years to get there, right? So I think it's a powerful reminder that just understand that you don't always see the whole picture.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. That leads me to a thought or a quote from one of the guys on our end. So Josh Lifrak is our director for mental performance. He's got an incredible story. He was at IMG Academy. He was the mental performance lead for the Chicago Cubs when they went from the lovable losers to the World Series champions. Pretty cool narrative change there. But he said something that was kind of an aha moment for me. And it really, really resonates. And it's exactly what you just said. Like, everyone looks at excellence as kind of like an arrival, right? Of like, okay, I do all of this work and then I'm excellent at something. And it's all of the work that you put in. When, his response is, excellence is actually an action, right? You're actually being excellent in the moment that leads you to your level of success, right? And so it's funny because we think about it in the corporate world, but he's making a joke and he goes, go send an excellent email, go send an excellent this, go do your next meeting, your next all hands, whatever it is, be excellent in that meeting. And that is actually what excellence is. And that consistently over time is how you have success, right? Excellence is not like an arrival or not a destination, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy, and I love it because, again, it's that idea that high quality performers, as you know, because you're blessed to work with them, it's this idea of they have this delicate balance and harmony between being goal oriented but process driven, right? Like you're saying, can you be excellent right now? Like, can I be excellent right now just having this conversation with you, right? Can I go all in and give you all of my time and all of my energy and attention and focus? Because from there, like you said, that's excellence, and consistently repeat over time. That's where the blessings and everything comes from that.
Yeah, exactly. I love what you said about the highlight reel, because that's something we talk about often, and it's a tough part for the younger society, right? Because they all see everyone's Instagrams and everything, but they don't see the reality behind it. So I love that, man.
Okay. So one of the things that connected us was, like you said, you took an excellent action. I remember you sent me an email, you check in, and then all of a sudden here we are a week later, we're having a conversation. So I'm curious from your perspectives. I feel like, getting to know you, you have these qualities where, you would be successful in lots of different venues in your life. I'm curious, what inspired you to want to become of the Limitless Minds family and really sort of pursue this work?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying all that, JT. So when I graduated college, you'll see all like the implants and devices and medical devices and stuff behind me. I went into the medical device industry, spent some time there, and I got recruited by a pharmaceutical company, Horizon Pharma. They were actually just acquired for $27 billion. So congrats to that. I'm sitting at a keynote address at our national sales meeting at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. It's day 4 of our national sales meeting. Might have been a little bit hungover. And I'm sitting in row 1, and we're about to have this keynote. And I've always been the person who was motivated by the ability to earn income, right? That's what I replaced winning sporting events with, is the ability to go out and sell effectively and, make money and provide for my family. So I was never the type of person who needed the keynote, right? I didn't need someone to get me all excited or motivated, because I was driven by the fact that I could make more money and provide more for my family, right? And so in walks a guy by the name of Trevor Moawad. And, for those who aren't familiar, Trevor was named by Sports Illustrated the world's best brain trainer. He worked with Nick Saban at Alabama, Kirby Smart at Georgia, Mel Tucker at Michigan State, the U.S. men's, U.S. women's national soccer team. He worked at IMG Academy for years. I mean, the amount, worked with Michael Johnson, Golden Shoes, like the list of people that he worked with is incredible, right? And so he goes on stage and gives the most impactful 60-minute address I've ever been a part of. And it wasn't like I was jumping out of my seat and high-fiving and, ready to run through a brick wall. It was just like, it just clicked. It made sense. It was things that you might practice at your best moments and not really have a name for. One of the ones I always talk about is the illusion of choice. So Nick Saban, when he, talks to his team at Alabama, new room of recruits, he says a couple things. First thing he says is, we're going to stop saying stupid stuff out loud. That's one of Trevor's quotes. And that leads to the compound effect of consistently saying negative things and what that can do to a team. But the other thing that he talks about is what's called the illusion of choice. And the illusion of choice is just that. If you want something, you don't really have a choice. Your choice is to get behind the actions and behaviors that you need to do to accomplish that, right? The easy example is, if you want to be in shape, JT, and you walk into my kitchen, there's an apple on the counter and a bag of Doritos, you know which one you have to eat, right? You know what your option truly is. But a lot of times we like to think we have a choice, and we really don't. So Trevor just hammered all of those points, and it was just this incredibly like tactful keynote where it made sense, right? And so there wasn't really much after that with Trevor. There was some kind of pull through, and little did I know at the same time that DJ Eitzen, a personal friend and mentor of mine who lives around the block from me, and Harry Wilson, who is Russell's older brother, Russell Wilson's Super Bowl winning quarterback. They were both national sales trainers at the same company. And at the same time, they were kind of hypothesizing, like, what separates the person who walks across the President's Club stage every single year from the person who has, for those who aren't in sales, it's very common for sales folks to have a really good quarter and then a down quarter, and a really good quarter and a down quarter. And the reality is, that's how you can kind of play the game to win money, right? But what Harry and DJ were trying to understand is, like, what is differentiating that person who continues to walk across that stage, right? And so at the same time, Russell was kind of building out his name, right? He had just won a Super Bowl, and I think he was in his third or fourth year in the NFL. And Harry was talking to him about, hey, I need a Trevor for my team. And they kind of laughed it off. And long story short, Limitless Minds was kind of spun up off of that idea, right? Of how can we democratize this level of coaching that is exclusive to elite athletes or exclusive to the top 1% of corporate professionals. And so fast forward a couple of years, I got recruited out of that company. I went to a medical device company, hence all the implants behind me. And I ended up starting my own company a few years ago. And DJ and I's relationship continued to grow. And luckily he was my first client of my business. So I started actually recruiting people to go and work for Limitless Minds. And it was funny because one of the things a lot of people might not know about recruiting is it's sales, right? You are selling people to go join a new opportunity. And specifically, recruiting in the startup world is very, very challenging sales, right? Because generally you're getting people to leave an opportunity where they're having a ton of success, right? Because obviously people want to hire good people or good candidates or good workers, right? And get them to go to a place where there might not be a ton of brand recognition, or there might be some more volatility or some more risk. And what I realized was it was very, very easy for me to sell Limitless Minds, because, there were a lot of clients of mine, but Limitless Minds was like my partner, right? And DJ helped me start my business, and, they ended up completing their recruiting process of me to bring me over. And it's been awesome, man. But it's been something that has been ongoing for a long time. And just, you know, there's a mission of mine with this to be able to provide what we provide to more people. And I think, you know, we have a responsibility to continue to sell and grow and build this organization to where we can get this to the amount of people that we want. We have a pretty lofty goal. We want to impact 1 billion people. I know I told you that. And we, I think their initial number, and this was before I was on board, was something like 10 million. And, you know, they realized they had to think a lot bigger. So we have a pretty lofty goal, but, it's a cool ride, and it's something we're all super excited about. So long story short, they got their arms around me because they knew I was really bought in.
Yeah, I love that journey, right? And again, it just reminds me that every journey is filled with ebbs and flows, right? And you know, I think back to, you know, your connection to DJ and Harry there, and how that because you were excellent in that environment, in that opportunity, that adventure in your life led to this opportunity at Limitless Minds. I think back to how we got connected, right? Was a conversation that, you know, where you reached out based on a conversation I had with someone else that was previously at Limitless Minds. So it's just, it reminds me of how life's all divine timing. And what really came up for me is you were sharing that, you know, what you shared about Trevor, this idea of like, stop saying stupid stuff out loud and the illusion of choice. And what came up for me was from his first book. And what resonated with me was that story, that Bill Buckner story. I don't know why, but I remember having a business coach say, you got to read this. And like, I couldn't put the book down. Right. And I remember where Trevor mentioned the fact of a negative thought is 4 to 7 times stronger than a positive one. Right. And anyone that's in personal growth knows we have this like built-in negativity bias. And then when you say that stupid stuff out loud, it amplifies it 10 times. So then the chances of it happening are 40 to 70 times more likely. And I just remember when he shared that, and then he related it to the Bill Buckner, and anyone that is a baseball fan knows that that's one of those moments in baseball where that, you know, it's we'll call it one of the bloopers, famous bloopers of baseball. So it really, as you were sharing that, really reminded me of how this stuff actually comes to be in our world, especially in the sports world.
Yeah. No, the Bill. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, I lost you there. I was gonna say, I can tell from your face that you weren't hearing me. But yeah, the Bill Buckner story is crazy, right? And it's so funny because I call it toxic positivity or compound negativity, right? And what you're talking about right there is just that, is compound negativity. The compound impact that it has in a team environment for one person to say something negative out loud, or as Trevor would say, stupid. He might use a more colorful word, but for them to say something like that out loud, that does compound across the team. And if you can get your team to stop verbalizing it, right? There's no way to get everyone to stop thinking it. But if you can just notice that you're thinking it and stop yourself from saying it, the transformative impact that has around the people, on the people around you, is incredible, right? And so that's where, you know, I know I got the book in transits here right now, but you'll read his second book, and he kind of talks about the aha moment of getting to neutral, which is the name of his second book. And his dad had called it non-negativity. And, you know, getting to neutral is just that moment of like, okay, have your emotions, but realize you're having your emotions, take a step back, take a pause, and then react, right? Then make your next best decision, right? And if you can get yourself to just separate what happened from the reaction and take that pause, you're setting yourself up for an entirely different level of success.
Yeah, no, I love what you're sharing there. And it's interesting, right? Like, you know, as you say that, it's interesting. I think of like listening to Trevor's story about his dad being one of like the first like speakers on this idea of like positivity, right? Where what I love about Trevor's work is like it's very factual and it speaks to a different lens because it's very applicable, right? Like there's simple concepts of just there's simple concepts based on ideas that need to be practiced as habits. That's it.
Well, that's one of his
So
phrases, right? Do simple better.
yeah.
Right? That's one of Trevor's most famous quotes.
So I'm curious on that. What do you think holds people back there? And before I preface it with this is I remember I was going through a challenging time this week, the moment, sorry. And I remember just hearing a coach that I'd work with where she would often say, like, allow the emotions to run to you and through you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I know like you being coming from a high quality athletic background, like I just need to move my body. I need to go out for a run. I need to process that. So I'm curious, like, what do you think holds people back from actually allowing them to, yeah, feelings, emotions, like they're neutral. It's the meaning we attach to it. So I'm curious on your perspective. What do you think holds people back from dealing with the emotions and feelings in a productive way?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of comes to the negativity bias that you were talking about. But the thing that I love about what we talk about and what we teach is we're not everything is rooted in fact, right? What happened has happened. Whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, it has already happened. But in specifically in sports, we've all had that feeling of like, gosh, just nothing's going my way right now, and the dark clouds circling over my head. And in reality, that's not the case, but that's the story you're telling yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get away from telling yourself that story, you'll put yourself in a much better position. So I shared this video with you last time, and it's truly powerful, and I would encourage everyone to check it out. But essentially, there's a story about a kid who was failing out of high school, and I will not do a justice of telling the story. Trevor does a much better job. But kid's failing out of high school, and he's not doing a great job, and he has to take the SAT, which is a big standardized test. It's scored out of 1,600 points, and long story short, kid goes, takes the test, and he comes home a couple weeks later. His mom gets the results. He gets 1480. And his mom immediately asks him, did you cheat? And he goes, well, I tried, but it was one of those Scantron things. It was tough. I couldn't see it. Long story short, he goes, Mom, I didn't cheat. And so what he did was he started studying. He started doing what the 1480 kids were doing. He started studying, going to class, taking tests, ends up going to college, graduates from college, ends up being super successful in his career. And I think it was, 9-10 years later or something like that, the SAT did their audit, and they realized that they sent 3 people the wrong score, and he was one of those kids. He actually got a 680. And what's funny is what you're talking about is, and I know you say act as if all the time, right? Mm-hmm. If you can just, again, get behind the actions and behaviors of what success looks like, mm-hmm. and you're going to have that same form of success, right? If you're telling yourself that, gosh, nothing's going my way, of course it's not going to go your way, because you're putting yourself already a leg behind, right? So I think mm-hmm. accepting what has happened. Mm-hmm. Again, let's not be toxically positive, right? Let's not just say, okay, everything's going to be perfect, everything's going to be great. No, just understand where you're at in the situation, and then get yourself behind the actions and behaviors that you need to get behind to mm-hmm. have success. So
yeah, I love what you share there. It was interesting. The conversation I had last week on the podcast was around this idea of like, do you understand the difference between a fact versus a story? Right. And like you said, like there are things that are just based in facts. And when we live from that place, we're more objective. When we create stories, sometimes that can lead us down a road that we don't necessarily want to go. So I love that. And it reminds me that idea of, what you shared here is like, we're driving in a car. If you look back at, past mistakes, it's like staring in the rearview mirror of life. Right. And if you constantly just stare in the rearview mirror and dwell on all the past failures, mistakes, eventually you're going to get in a car crash.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you keep your eyes on the road ahead, you accept what has happened, but then you stay focused on what are thoughts and actions I need to take right now, be excellent right now. It's amazing how the journey will unfold, and you'll get to where you want to go faster with greater ease.
Yeah. That one of our room tilters, Colin Henderson, uses the phrase, put your attention where your intention is. And I think it's really important, right? Because if you unpack that a little bit, like if you're intending on getting in shape, or you're intending on getting that awesome job that you've wanted, that is where your attention should be, right? And if you're only focusing on stuff that's already happened, but again, you're still trying to accomplish this, but as you said, you're looking in the rearview mirror. How do you expect to accomplish that when you're not even focusing on it?
So I'm curious, like, as the vision's grown, right? Like you said, it went from 10 million to where it's like, hey, no, we're going to think bigger here, 1 billion people. What has that process been like for you and the Limitless Minds family to really amplify and make this vision like as cliche, that big, hairy, audacious goal?
Yeah. It is a lofty goal, right? I mean, there's no hiding that, but we all know that what we do works and that people need it, right? And that, it has a transformative impact and thus a compound impact. So, we chug along every single day and, talk to whoever we can talk to keep spreading the mission. We've been really, really lucky to work with some of the biggest and best companies in the world, to continue spreading our mission. But it's a lofty goal, and it's one that we're aware of. And as we say, we're going to get behind the right actions and behaviors to get there. So
yeah, okay. Where has the focus, like, as you help to grow this vision of getting it there? I know you mentioned before you came across this work when you were in pharmaceutical sales. Where's like the vision in order to reach 1 billion people? Like, do you have certain industries or areas of life that you really want to impact with this work?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So there's kind of a few different lenses to look at it from, and I think our first journey is in the business world, because there's it's the fastest way to impact the most amount of people. And also, it gives us continuous funding to continue to grow and impact more people. From an industry perspective, we spend a lot of time in the life sciences space, specifically pharmaceuticals and medical device. Just this past 2 weeks, we just ended up partnering with our eighth out of the top 12 pharmaceutical companies in the world. We spend a lot of time with sales organizations. They are high pressure, high performance individual contributors. They a lot of times have more tough days than good days. And, especially in the market that we're in right now, it requires that you have that sense of getting to neutral, right? Because just like in football, you have a bad play, or, I played quarterback, you throw an interception. Okay, it's over, move on. The same thing happens times 10 in the sales world, right? I mean, these folks have 15, 20, 30 sales calls a week. Some in pharma, sometimes it's 15 a day. And a successful week might be getting one more doctor to identify 3 more patients for your product, right? When those doctors are seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients. So sales can be demoralizing, but it can also be super, super rewarding, right? And so I think for the folks who have utilized our product and utilized our who we are and our methodology, I think they realize that, okay, just because that didn't go my way doesn't mean that the next one's not going to go my way, right? And the exact opposite too. Just because I had a great sales call, or just because I threw a touchdown pass, does not mean that I'm going to go back out there and do it, right? I still need to prepare and be ready just as much as if the other had happened, right? Trevor always talks about pressure being a privilege, right? Or Trevor always talked about pressure being a privilege. And that's so true, right? Like you get into that situation and, the sales equivalent is, hey, you just had an awesome quarter. Now, all of a sudden you have a higher goal, right? That's a good problem to have. It's a good challenge to have. In the sports world, the pressure is the highest at the greatest stage, but it's a privilege that you're there, right? I mean, if the people that don't have pressure aren't in that privileged position, right? And I think like if you can get yourself to reframe how you think about things a little bit, or position them a little bit differently, you're going to feel much more confident and empowered in those settings.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that you share that idea, like with the reframe, right? And anyone that's spent any time around, mindfulness, that ability, really, that is the one thing we can control, right? Is we have the ability to choose our next thought, which is free will, right? Is the thought precedes the action. So is it, are you choosing wisely? Are you choosing an empowering thought, like you said, or a disempowering one? And when you really, does it mean you'll get it right 100% of times? But when you start to remind yourself that and you stack those, as you were saying, choosing empowering thoughts, your results change, things get better.
Yeah. If you can just think to yourself, what's the next best step in this situation? Take it, right? Again, we all have that day that just doesn't feel like it's going our way, or we all have that moment or that situation that just is not rolling our way. But that has nothing to do with what's coming after that, right? And it's just getting yourself to realize that. And the thing that I think is really important to note about like mindfulness or mindset or as we say, mental fitness, it's not just a one and done type thing, right? And by the way, no one is perfect at it, right? Everyone has bad days, everyone has bad moments, but it is truly something you have to work at. We are a mindset and wellness tech company, and we internally go through mindfulness training. We go through mindset training. We go through neutrality training because no one is perfect, right? But if you can, again, just start to identify and then make your reaction off of the identification of the problem versus your emotion of the problem.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like that ability to go to neutral, do you feel like the narrative, like the culture around these ideas, like, hey, like you need to put in the reps and sets, right, in the mental fitness every day, right? It's just like training your body. Do you find like people are more open to these ideas? Or do you find that, there's just certain industries like sales, business, sports they're more open to this right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, JT. I think there's definitely dominoes that fall a little bit easier. The sports world understands the need for mental conditioning, right? If you look at the NFL, they have teams of mental conditioning coordinators. You look at college football programs, the same thing. And it's translating a lot more to what we call like the business athlete or the corporate athlete. I think sales, there's a huge, draw for it, but there are still places and folks who don't necessarily, believe in it. But I think what's really cool, what we get to do selfishly, JT, is we get to see the people who didn't, the me's, right? The me sitting in the front row at the Bellagio, who's like, dude, I don't need this. I'm good. Like I'm going to go hit my number next quarter because I want to make a ton of money. And I walk out of that meeting and I'm like, wow, that was impactful. Right. And so, those are really, really cool when we get to experience that.
Yeah, that resonates with me. And why it does is I remember when my wife and I left teaching and education, went into the entrepreneurial world, we hired her a coach because she needed it. And I remember being on that call with her coach, and it was like she was getting sold by two people. And it was interesting that I felt like, oh, like I'll put in the reps and sets it. Like I'm ambitious, I'm driven, I'll get after it. And then it was as we dove into the work, and I quickly started to learn, like, oh my gosh, like this is like a cheat code in life. Like the ability to discipline what's going on here. It's like my life is shifting. It feels different. So it's interesting that you describing your experience the first time you heard these ideas.
You're spot on. I saw something the other day, and it's not directly related, but I think there's a correlation to be made. It was like if all you see is something similar to negativity, if all you see is negativity, that's all you see, right? But or if all you think about is negativity, all you're going to see is negativity. Or the counterpart was this person was an entrepreneur, right? And they're like, if all you see is opportunity, or all you think about is opportunity, that is all you're going to end up manifesting, right? All of a sudden, you're going to see an opportunity around every single corner versus seeing negativity around every single corner. And I think like, it's kind of attention, intention, and all of that. Like you see what you think, right?
Yeah. So I'm curious on this one, and this is a little with, you mentioned opportunity. For the last week, every time I've gone out for a walk or run, I have found a dime on the floor, on the road.
You're looking for it though, right?
Yeah. So it's just interesting. Like you talk about opportunity. I'm like, wow, like where's my mind focused on right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious. Again, you have this lofty goal where, what do you feel needs to happen? Like, I mean, obviously, you're having these rich and meaningful conversations. What's kind of the next thing that needs to happen to really take Limitless Minds like to the next level?
That's a great question. I would say it's probably just we need to continue being consistent, right? We need to continue getting in front of the right organizations and partnering with the right organizations and getting in front of folks like yourself to keep, spreading the mission. And I think what is really cool is we know that this stuff works. And there's a lot of sales opportunities out there where you're kind of just like selling something and it feels selfish, right? Because you're just trying to achieve your own goals and your own, financial freedom or whatever it may be. But we just know that this stuff works. So it's really exciting to partner with new companies and new organizations and get to experience their follow-up or their reaction to the first meeting or the first activation session, or after they go through the 12-month program and talk about the impacts it's had on their business. But not a great answer. We're a process-driven company, right? Process is always how you get to the outcome that you want. So just keep pounding the rock, I guess.
Okay. So the idea I had was, like you said, there's early adopters, right? In any team, any organization, any business, any group of people, you're going to have the early adopters, right? People like yourself and I that, okay, like I believe in this, I'm all in. Then you're going to get, the opposite end, the resistors that it doesn't matter what you say, their mind's closed. So what would you say maybe to like someone who's kind of sitting on the fence with this and maybe they're thinking about integrating some mental conditioning into their team, their organization? What would you say is the thing that's, I don't know, what would you tell that coach, that leader, that parent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of our room tilters is Travis Thomas. He's the mental conditioning coordinator for the men's national team. Who's just over in Qatar with them. Really, really just amazing guy. And I watched a video of him once talking to some team or an organization, and he was asking them, anonymously, what is the internal voice in your head telling you right now, right? What are the challenges your internal voice is? I'm not good enough. I'm not going to land that job. I'm not going to hit that, sales quota, or, we're going to lose this game. This team's bigger, better, faster, stronger, whatever it is. And he actually asked the whole group to anonymously tell him what's one of the main things your internal clock or your internal voice is telling yourself, right? And they all were like the same 5 things. Right. And what's funny is, as you said earlier, and I love that you said it and you called it out, is the negativity bias. Like, people don't realize we're all in our own head all day long, right? I'm thinking right now, what am I going to say to JT next? You're thinking, okay, what is David going to say next? How am I going to respond? Right. Like it's funny. I heard once Trevor asked a group, who all talks to themselves all day long. And like 90% of the room raised their hands. And he starts laughing. He goes, so the 10 of you that didn't raise your hand are telling yourself in your head right now, I don't talk to myself. Right. Because we all do. And so I think that was like a really cool moment for a lot of the resistors, was like, well, he is right. I am telling myself that I'm not going to land that, or that's too tough, or that's too tall a mountain to climb. And, that's what John and Jessica are experiencing as well. And I think what's really cool about the community style or the team style is you get to be vulnerable with other people, right? And not a lot of times, especially in the business world or the professional world, does that happen, right? And so I think what I would tell that person, if they're in some form of like a leadership position, I would have them go through that exercise with their team or with their group or with their family, right? I mean, I think what spurred our conversation, JT, was me saying how impactful it would have been for me if I had this training or this mindset when I was younger and had the ability to, deal with change or adversity or challenge. But yeah, I think that would be a really cool exercise to kind of get a few of the light bulbs to pop off. Like, okay. And also, a great symptom of it is you feel closer as a team, right? Because you're all having the same thing, right? You're all experiencing that same, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, internal language to yourself.
I love that story. One, because it prompted people to stop and think and actually like become aware of like what's going on here. And it reminded me on the power of a thought-provoking question, right? Like when you actually give someone a great question,
yeah,
whether they accept it, whether their mind's open to accepting it, whether the mind's closed to it, they have a choice, right? Or the illusion of choice, but then
yeah, there you go.
Right? It's then from there, then it allows for a deeper conversation, right? About what could be holding you back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like we always talk about like a transformative impact. And that's where you see it, right? Like you can show something someone 100 times, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it. But if you can get that person to just have that light bulb moment, right? The moment that I had, the moment that you had, the moment that, all of the folks who've adopted this have had, it truly is crazy what it can do, for you personally, but not just in an athletic world, not just in a business world, but at home. Like I kid you not, last night I was priming a wall in my house. The primer can exploded, sent primer all over the place, and I was not neutral for about 3 to maybe 25 minutes. But you know what? Once you get to the other side of it, like you do the right thing, you take the next best step. There are situations at home where that stuff matters, right? And you kind of like, you get to a point where you kind of laugh it off, like, yeah, I realize I'm just super frustrated right now about something, and it's like, whether I'm happy about it or mad about it, it's not going to change that it happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think like it's an interesting like thought journey to go on with, especially like with yourself once you start to realize. And another example for me is the stop saying stupid stuff out loud. So we talked about golf a little bit earlier, and for those who don't golf, there's a handicap system, right? Which the handicap system is aligned or designed to where any of us can play a match fairly, right? Basically, if you shoot 10 strokes above par, you are a 10 handicap for ease of use, right? And going into last year, I was a 12 and a half handicap. And I just committed to, and again, by no means was I perfect, because generally in athletics, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, but I just committed to just realizing my frustrations, and whether I was able to not actually say it out loud, or say it out loud and realize to myself, like, you're an idiot. Come on, man. You're good. Stop saying that stuff. Just realize that has nothing to do with what's going on. Laugh it off. And it's funny, I went from a 12 and a half handicap to a 7.5 handicap. So my score got 5 strokes better just by, again, not even, you could argue I wasn't even effective at stopping saying stupid stuff out loud. But what I was aware. And just even that moment of awareness versus something happens, your reaction happens, to something happens, think about it, then react, it is monumental. It's again, and I am a heart on my sleeve, emotional type of guy, and I'm not perfect at it, but it's helped me so much.
Yeah, and hearing you describe it, it's freeing, right? Where you stop allowing your external results to control the way you think and feel, right? And it's an act, more importantly, right? So love it. Okay. So I'm curious. I definitely know that this conversation has sparked some interest. What is the best way for someone to learn more about Limitless Minds? Maybe someone wants to connect with you about, how they can start to embed and integrate some of this into their, high quality team and organization. What would be the best way to connect with you or Limitless Minds?
Yeah. A couple different ways. You can check us out on our website, limitlessminds.com. We are a business focused company, so we have a pretty strong presence on LinkedIn. Check me out on LinkedIn. You can check us out on LinkedIn. Again, Limitless Minds. You can find me on there as well. You can also, I would if nothing else, for all the individuals out there, read Trevor's books. They're incredible. It takes what it takes, getting to neutral. I always joke, like I had to take a deep breath after I finished It Takes What It or Getting to Neutral. Like it was just an incredible story, and I'm so excited to get your reaction after you read it, because it is that good. It is that powerful. But yeah, read the books. Check us out on LinkedIn. Check us out on Instagram. Think big, go far. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll be happy to share out all those links in the description, whether on the podcast, whether on YouTube or on Facebook. So happy to do that. David, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for the great man you are, right? The great husband, the great son, the great teacher, mentor, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. You know, the one thing that I definitely come to appreciate of you from our conversations is just how passionate you are about this work, and how like you're just on a mission to share these simple ideas with more people to make it more accessible, because you know how life transforming and life altering it can be. So I just want to thank you for being that human being and inspiring me to think bigger in my life. So thanks for that, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. I don't know how I can one up that, but no, I'm excited to be here. I think we're both really blessed to be able to have a platform to where we can actually help people and have, get to experience their aha moments, right? Because we know that they happen and we know that they're out there. But no, it's super exciting, man. It's fun stuff. I'm happy to be here, and I can't wait to continue tuning in.
Okay. So folks, David dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly in the game of life. But as I remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I like to remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from these conversations is that if it resonated with you, if it touched your heart, then please share it with a friend, a loved one, a teammate, or someone that you feel just needs to hear these empowering messages. The more people we have listening, understanding, and applying these simple ideas to their life, the more blessed this world will be. As always, I love having these conversations, and I look forward to chat with you next time in the huddle. Have a blessed day, everyone.